a 15-minute speech, and it wasn't live. It wasn't live. I thought, why is nobody on? Oh my goodness gracious. Well, and here we are now. I'm running a little bit late, but I'm going to give you a short on what because I told you I was going to go live, and I did not even recognize that it hadn't attached to the internet yet. So, or the, whatever it is, the data. And then it just connected. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I literally just finished. What is that? What is the world show me on this, right? Like, I don't know if it's a God thing, but that's like, what does the world show me on this? All right, guys. So I'm going to go back over everything that I just said. But I'm going to do it kind of brief, but nonetheless, it's probably good, right? I hate when people just random on forever. So let's talk about fear. And I want to, because that's been a real big thing for us here lately. And a lot of people are stopping themselves right now. And a lot of people are living in a lot of fear just because of what we have going on in the world. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Now, the first thing that I want you to, first thing I want to share actually is a little bit of a story. And I'm going to be short on it if you've heard me share the story before. One of the times I've been the most scared in my life, and I almost backed out on my word. I almost backed out on what it was that I was doing, was whenever I became an ICU nurse. And if you're on right now, you may have heard this. It's going to be short though. But I legitimately was terrified. I was terrified. I thought, Lord, there's no way. You're not smart enough. Right? I don't know if you guys know this. I don't think anyone knows yet. I was diagnosed with ADHD whenever I was in grade school, one of the grade schools. I don't remember which year exactly, but I was younger. I was probably around like 10 or 11. I was a C student. I was not somebody. I was actually in a special ed class for a while during that time. Right? I was legitimately, and I tell you that, and I'm going to tell you also that I graduated from my doctorate top of the class. Right? Like I had almost a perfect 4.0 for my doctorate. And I started out there, right? But those beliefs are still in the back of my head. I still feel like I'm not the person that could actually do something as great as become an ICU nurse. So I was sitting out there terrified, and I almost backed out. And the only thing that pushed me to go forward is that I'm a person of my word, and I don't just not show up. But I was terrified. And what I want you to know is so many things, but fear is not something that has to stop you. Fear is actually something to be really thankful for, because it's showing you something. It's revealing something within you to allow you to move forward to the next step. Sometimes fear is a little bit legitimate. I was a brand new nurse. I hadn't taken care of anybody by myself yet. I'd only been in school, only been in my program or my training right before that. I had done a nurse residency, but it wasn't even in the ICU, and it was, wasn't super hands-on. So I had legitimate fears. I could have honestly accidentally hurt somebody. But the thing is I didn't have to identify with who I was in that moment. I recognized it. I thanked it for being there, for keeping me safe. But I recognized that I can evolve from it. So what did I do? I dove in deep, and within a year, I want to say a year and a half, I'm not sure exactly on the times, I was CCRN certified, which is still to this day, even going through my doctorate, still one of the hardest tests I've ever taken. That stuff was hard. CCRN nurses, if you're a CCRN nurse, like, give me a comment below, shout yourself out. It was really hard. But what happened with that is that fear propelled me forward. Now I had two options, right? I had two options. I could have sat there and said, nope, not gonna be an ICU nurse. I'm going to call them and tell them this is not for me. I'm going to get a job, on a floor somewhere else that's not as high in acuity, and I'm going to just be happy with where my life is. Or I could use this to propel me forward. And that's exactly what I did. And I ended up becoming CCRN certified within a year and a half. And what that also did is it showed me that I can overcome things, that I can actually I can leave that little girl who's in special ed behind. I don't have to identify with her. I can thank her for being a part of my life, for a part of something that I overcame, but I don't have to identify with her. I can move forward. You can be thankful in that. Guys, there's like 3 different places, at least in Matthew, where the Lord speaks about those who do, he will exalt. meaning that you got to do it first. We've talked about this, right? We've talked about this. I did a recent live over this, and why I truthfully believe, or actually it's in my stories, why I truthfully believe that the Lord works through us doing that. Sometimes he's literally waiting for us because he's like, is she really committed? Is he or she really committed? You know, we've done that before in our lives where we've wanted somebody to do something for us out of love, but we didn't want to push them into it because we wanted to see, is it really their heart? Is it really their heart that they want to do this? A lot of the times, that's what he's waiting on. And that fear can stop you, it can identify you, or you can break through it. And the only way that that fear is not going to identify you is if you step up to the plate and you go to the other side of it. You decide to break through it. And then your identity becomes a conqueror. And through him, you are a conqueror. Whether you are identifying with it or you are acting on it or not, through him, you are a conqueror. But if you're sitting there allowing yourself to say stop from fear, you're identifying with fear and you're identifying with that past self. I shared a story before about my son, and he was terrified of the monkey bars. Last night we were actually talking about, you know, fear and being thankful for fear, because it's our fear of obstacles, something that's scary for you to overcome. And I asked him, you know, what is something that you've overcome that you're afraid of? He brought the monkey bars. And, you know, I asked him, would you be as proud of yourself if you weren't afraid of doing the monkey bars? And at first he wasn't sure, you know, he didn't totally understand the question. Like finally got him to understand, like, oh yeah. And he's like, no, I wouldn't have been afraid. I would have just done it. And looking, that wouldn't have been something awesome in your life. So be thankful for those options, for those opportunities. Be thankful for those and move forward in them. And then use it to propel you forward. Invest in yourself. That's what I did as a terrified nurse. I learned, okay, how can I become really good at what I do? I invest and learn from the best of the best and became CCRN certified. Invest in yourself. It allows you to tell yourself, I'm worthy. It gives us that subconscious ticket, right? That sometimes we honestly and truthfully just need. Even if we don't need it, we can use that. It can propel us forward faster, right? I could have learned all this stuff without becoming CCRN certified, but that CCRN certified solidified it for me. And I'm going to tell you that I became a much better nurse after that. I'm a huge proponent of board certifications. I'm actually in the process of getting another one right now, because I do believe in holding yourself to an excellence and performing based upon that. So back to my son and his monkey bars experience. You know, he was terrified. He was terrified. And when he jumped down and he ran over to me, and he said, Mom, did you see that? Did you see that? I said, of course I did. I was recording it because that's what I do. And he was so proud of himself. He was so proud of himself. And now he gets to use that moment to propel him forward in the future. That was an opportunity. It wasn't an obstacle. Maybe he didn't see it at the time, but he did. And the biggest thing, guys, that I want you to really bring home on this is that you don't have to identify with your past experiences. You can be thankful for them. You can overcome them. But if you stay on that side of fear, you're identifying with them. The only way for you to break out of those is to step onto the other side and go through with what it is that you're called to do. And know that incredible things can happen. I also wanted to, I'm out of time really, but I was wanting to talk about, you know, the difference between like having a fear and knowing, like, do I go for this? Do I go for this, or is it a smart thing, right? Because I talk about there is some legitimacy to fear, right? If somebody tells me to literally jump off a bridge, I'm going to have fear, and I'm going to say, I don't think it's a good idea. And that fear is kind of a good thing, and maybe I shouldn't fall for that one, right? Maybe I shouldn't do that one. There are legitimate fears. There's such a culture in this world where it's like, everything you're afraid of, just go for and do. Well, no, like there are reasons, right? Go back to your values. Go back to your values. Does sitting where you're at right now uphold your values? Does it allow you to be a part of what it is that you love the most more, that you are put on this earth to do? Does it allow you to do more of that or less of that? Does it allow you to fill other people's cups more or less? Which does it allow you to do? Answer those for yourself. Go back to your values. Go back to your values, and which ones are really being executed upon the most, and go with that decision. Go with that decision. Don't allow fear, but go back to your values. you know, I've had a lot of hard decisions in my life. Most of us have. That's not anything new, right? If you haven't had hard decisions, then you aren't living life. I've always gone back to my values. Being biblical based, following God is number one. Being with my family and raising children to put in this world that are incredible men is my second. Uplifting and inspiring and helping other people, and truth and honesty. Truth and honesty is probably my third one, to be honest. But outside of, that's kind of incorporated all of it. Big person about truth and honesty. I can't stand inaccuracy, and I can't stand in being untruthful, being untruthful. Can't stand those two things. Big pet peeve. And against my values. But in helping and lifting up other people and sharing the gospel to other people and lifting them up and doing his work. So I guess it all kind of flows together, right? But those are my values. And I think which allows me to do more of that. Is it more of a comfort zone that I'm sitting in, or is it where I'm supposed to be? You just have to ask yourself those things. All right, guys, thanks for jumping on, for those who jumped on, and I will come back to you all. For those of you who are nurse practitioners, PAs, I want you to know that I have something coming for you in the very near future. And I'm really excited about it. Like I said, it has to do with my board certification that I'm in the process of getting right now. But I'm going to be sharing this with other nurse practitioners, and PAs, providers, doctors, MDs, DOs, all of those, whoever wants to be a part of this. I'm really excited about it. But thanks for jumping on, guys. God bless.